right, we're recording now. That sounds better. All right, so we're continuing on with our date picker, our weight logger, and we're going to now, we already are setting the date and time based on the Android OS when this activity is launched. And now we want to let the user change these date and times. And since we know that users are dumb, we have to force them into a format. So we don't want them to choose the format at all. We don't want them to be able to edit one digit on here. So the better option is to display the standard date and time picker. So when they click on this date entry box, it's going to pull up a date dialog that lets them choose the date, and it's consequently the same for the time. So we're going to do that in our code in our wait logger.java. This is our code, and we have to create the dialog system so that it launches. So let's see. So we need to. Sorry, I got to get my code up here. Pause. So we first need to write some on-click methods so that when they click on that particular edit view, that this code pops up. So we need a public void date on click, and it takes a view like everything else. And what we want to do is we want to call a new date picker dialog. So when they do this, we're going to say new date picker dialog. And then we can define what this date picker dialog has as the default values. So first of all, the first value is the listener callback. There's a listener routine that has to be written that we'll write in a second that gets called whenever they select a date. When they select a date, we have to then run a function that takes that date value and stuffs it wherever we want, right? We need to take the date value, put it into a string, repopulate the edit text based on what they've selected. So we're going to create that inside of our wait logger class, and we just say that that listener will reside in our this object. So later on, we need to define a date picker listener. And then we're going to pass in the date, and then we're going to get the date from our current calendar, right? We have our C calendar, and we can get the calendar dot year and the month and the you guessed it, the day, right? Calendar dot day. There we go. We're good. So I'm going to put these on their own line here so that it's a little easier to see that. And then we have a final. Oh, day is it's actually day of month. Sorry. And then the final parameter is the a true, let's see. Nope, sorry, this is wrong. Then we want to show that dialog. So we create the dialog, then we show the dialog. All right, so we're going to create it and then show it. And well, we're just not doing good today, are we? My date. Oh, probably. No. No, it would go here. This is the last one. So that's the date picker. So it creates the new date dialog, and then we show it at the end. All right, and then we need to create the listener for this, and that's where our date comes in. We need to create a date picker dialog dot on date set listener, and that's going to be our date object that we're going to pass to and from the dialog, and we pass it the view that we're in, the year, the month of year, and the day of month. Oops. And that is this function that gets called where we're going to take the date that comes back to us and set the calendar based on that, set our internal version of this calendar. And we're going to set our month. From the month of year. Yep. Sorry, my caps lock is working not good today. Month of year. And we're going to set the day of month to be the day of month. So these are the parameters that get called. These values are what get passed to our little method here. So we can use these values straight into our function that we're writing. Yeah. Right? Then at that point, I can then take the calendar and update the edit box on the screen. So what I've done is I've set my global little calendar value here, and then I can update the view on the screen, which is basically this information here. All right, so I could just call my set current date on view at the end of this. Yep. So I've got some problem here. I've got lambda expressions are not supported at this language level. Interesting. No. It's just we're just setting what we're doing is we're setting like an anonymous function in jQuery. We're storing that anonymous function here in this date value. And then that date function gets passed into our onClick. So let me pause and figure out what the heck is going on here. Lambdas, that's right. my C is defined up here. When in doubt, reformat. It's always a good idea to do that. Yeah, that's like the anonymous function creators, what that does. No, that's the right syntax. It's an anonymous function creator is what that is, basically. Of programming for Android, all these different versions. So my Lambda version does not work because of the Java version that we're using. So we had to convert it into this anonymous class way of doing it. So we're creating a new onDate listener anonymous function. So this is a lot like jQuery. And we need to override the method that happens whenever they click the done in the date dialog picker. So when they select a date and they hit done, this method gets called on date set, which is a method that's implemented by this listener already, and we're overriding it to do something with it. And that function gives us the view that it came from the year, month of year, and day of month. And we use that to set our calendar back into our global calendar in this class that we're using. And then finally, I call my set current date on view to take that data from the calendar, format it the way I want it, and stuff it back into the edit view. Okay? So the last thing we need to do, though, is in our project for our XML file, we have to change the onClick here for the date edit field to our date onClick method that we just wrote. All right, so date onClick. So it starts by clicking here, the date onClick. Once they select that, that creates a new dialog with all the data that I need. So we're passing it the current date, month, day, year to the calendar dialog. And then we're finally showing that calendar dialog. Then when the user hits done, this overridden onDateSet method gets called, where we get the data from the dialog, we set back into our calendar, and then we format the date and stuff it back into our edit view. So let's see, that should work. A lot of code for a little result here, but it's see if we can get this to go. We go to our weight logger. We click on the date. It brings up our dialog picker, which is pretty cool. And depending on your screen resolution, what I found on my smaller devices that I was playing with, only this part shows up. The full calendar doesn't. So it just depends on your screen resolution, and that's all handled by the operating system. So I can choose here, November, December. I can choose, okay, on December 25th, this is the date that I'm going to weigh myself. And I hit done. And that date goes all the way through, and I reformat it back into the format that I want, and I stuff it back into the date edit view. All right? Does that make sense?
Make sure you have cookies on Christmas.
That's right. Lots of cookies on Christmas. Any questions on that? All right. Let's try and do the time now. The time is similar, time picker. So we need to have a time on click method. and I probably named these wrong, but time on click, and it gets a view. And this is what's going to be selected when the user clicks on the time edit field. So we should go change that right now. And in our layout, click on our time edit view and change the on click to be our time on click method. All right, so that we have that done. So now when they click this, this function is going to execute, and we're going to do something similar where we're going to create a new time picker dialog, and we're going to pass in the same context, so that this is going to be the callback method that gets executed. That means where is it defined? It's going to be defined in this class, and we're going to define it similar to this one up here. Sorry, similar to that one. All right, so we pass in that. The time variable that's going to come, which is that anonymous function. So we'll have that in a second. And then we're going to pass in, we're going to get the data from our calendar. Calendar.hour. And we're going to get the calendar.minute. I believe so, yes, I believe so. And then we're going to call our show to show that sucker. I don't remember what this is, so let's go look at the time picker dialog. Let's go search on that. I knew you were going to ask that. I was hoping you wouldn't. But so this is the data that gets passed to us, the context, the callback, the hour of the day, the minute, and whether it's a 24-hour view. So that's what sets military time. So I didn't want military time, so I set it to false. I don't know. Good Google question. All right, so then, yeah, maybe it's different. Yeah, it's Greenwich Mean Time maybe or something. I don't know. All right, so now we need a time picker dialog on time set listener callback. So time picker dialog dot on time set listener callback. We're going to call it time because that was the value that we used here. That's the same method that we're using. And we're going to create a new we can't use the Lambda system, so we're going to say it's a new time picker dialog on time set listener, and IntelliSense here with IntelliJ filled out the rest of it for me. Isn't that nice? So now all I have to do is change this code, and that's what's going to happen when the user selects done when they've selected their time. So, and these are the values that I can get from the dialog. So that's what the user chose in the dialog. So we're going to take and we're going to set our calendar now to be whatever the user passes in to me. And then we're going to set the minutes to the minute. And this was hour of day. Did you? What? Oh. Unicode time. That's interesting. And then once I've set my calendar information, I can call my update view, which just takes that current calendar information and stuffs it into the edit text. All right, formats it the right way and stuffs it into the edit text. So that should do it. That was relatively simple, right? So let's go see that sucker work. Once I got past the lambda problems. Phi beta lambda cow whatever. So here's our weight logger. I can click on the time now. I did. There we go. Very slow. All right, so here's our time picker, and I can choose AM, PM, whatever, and say done. And it puts the time. Yeah, my PM is wrong. So that's something we'll have to fix, right? Yes. So so now my date picker works. Eventually. There we go. And my time picker works, except for the PM. And then once I'm done, I can save my weight. Ta-da! Isn't that great? So now we can't, they're not allowed to edit this information. That's just so slow, it's not coming out. It's strange. And the time will be set correctly now, so we don't have to worry about formatting that. All right, any questions on that? How do we fix the AM and PM? So when I'm formatting it, I am passing it as the AM and PM. So that's correct. But the hours that I'm getting back are not being modified when I get them back from here. So that's a good question. Let's debug it and see what I get here. All right. So that's a good way to use the debugger. Let's see if we can figure that out. I actually had not fixed that, so we will figure it out together. Come on. So I click on the time. I go to 8 p.m. And let's see what our data is here. So our hour of day is 20. And the minutes are 34. So that would have been 8 p.m. So instead of setting the hour, what should I set? Maybe hour of day, right? Let's try that. And rerun it. Well, I was in the debugger and I ran it again, and that's not useful, so. And so that's a good question. Why, if I just hit change code and hit run in the debugger again, why is that wrong? if I'm in the debugger and I change code and I just hit run again inside the debugger, what's the problem with that? It's not compiled again. It's the old. I'm still debugging the old code, right? So. Right. So let's set it to 8:35 p.m. And there we go. Fixed it. Isn't that sweet? So one little fix. And you were there when it was fixed, so you can remember that the rest of your life. Isn't that sweet? That's what the notes are for. All right, any questions on any of that? Wasn't that fun? That took a lot longer than I thought. Sorry about the Lambda problems. But again, the flow is that this onClick method gets called first. That creates a new dialog, and passing in the listener callback that I created up here. And so when that dialog finishes, this method gets called, and I can take the data that the user set in the dialog and restore it in my view. So that's basically how the flow goes. All right? Any questions on any of that? Wasn't that fun? I think so. I think that's the best way to do it because that's a standard way that shows the standard dialogues that the Android users are used to. So, yeah, if you want to create your own dialogue, go have at it. But I would make the rest of your program work first. Good luck with that. That's a fair amount of work. All right, so tomorrow we'll talk about saving. Now we've got everything. We've got the date being sent across from the previous activity, previous view, and now we can just click save our weight, and we want to save that to a text file. We're going to start with a text file first. So.